7 o'clock, and we are all here, quorum in hand. Call to order on November 30th in our beautiful new meeting room. Thank you, staff, for arranging that. Call to order, adoption of the agenda. Can I have a mover? Thank you, Norm. Seconder, thank you, Fred. Any changes to the agenda? Additions, deletions? Yes?
Under 8B1, which has to do with appointments to the Infrastructure Committee, it's been brought to my attention that we may need to look at an amendment of the terms of reference because we're going to be looking at increased numbers when we look at the names in close. So there is terms of reference printed and available for distribution, and that would be something that I would ask council to consider at that point in the proceedings.
Fine. All good. Anything else, anybody? No? No? I will have just a bit of guidance on this. There's some stuff that's in the minutes that I would bring up as business arising. Is that correct, Peter?
Probably.
When I do that, so I don't have to change the agenda now. Okay. Thank you. Concluded. All in favor of the amended agenda? Thank you. All gone, going. And rowdy public.
I don't have anything much to say, but I must tell you that
You're going no.
So I'm going to. This where you're meeting now was the original council chambers going back when Curly Stewart sat where you sit.
I remember seeing a picture of you at your desk way back in the dark ages. Was
Well, I
that
there after
downstairs?
Curly, but this
Was
was
that
the
up here?
council chambers. The desk was right there. It wasn't nearly so lovely as that one. And the gallery was here where we're sitting. So I just bring back some memories. So I said, just comment on that. So.
Thank you very, very much. All right, anything else? No?
No, I'm here to listen and to give my 2 cents about the beach.
Oh,
If
good.
this is
Well,
on the agenda.
thank you. If I look like I'm going to get too far along, I probably allow some latitude here so that you can speak up. Okay, good. No delegations, so we'll move past that. Review and approval of minutes of prior meetings. So that would be the October 16th, and we refer you to page 7. And my 2 esteemed colleagues are the only Mohicans left standing for that meeting, so we'll go with any changes. Councillors B and B. Last chance. Okay. All in favor of the agenda as
Minutes.
oh.
You said agenda.
Hmm?
You said agenda. Minutes. Sorry, minutes.
Oh, of the minutes. Thank you. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong sets. My page is so full of notes. There you go. The minutes. Thank you. Show of unanimous hands. Thank you, Neville. Okay, which gets into the inaugural one. Thank you, Neville, for bringing up the key piece of that. Any other changes on this one? Nope.
I don't think so. No.
It's pretty thin, so you got what you want to go.
I didn't have the notes yet. No.
All fine? Good. No opposed, all in favor? Thank you, done. Business arising from the minutes. I have a couple, but I'll allow my colleagues to go first, if you will. Okay, and then, and this is Peter for a bit of clarification, that this is the 3 items which are on page 14 of 193. And it's primarily the this actually, it's just a one issue. It's the CN parking lot, which got double duty on the second bullet point and the fourth one. And I know that there are other things involved, so I guess my aim here is to move the CN parking lot discussion from where it is here, which was verbal, to the way I can raise it is through business arising, but ultimately my aim is to get it on to unfinished business, because it looks like we're going to be talking about it every time.
Preferably not, but perhaps I could just speak to the status of the matter now.
Perfect.
So where we're at with this is that we've got essentially an approved drainage plan for the parking lot. However, we have some disagreements with CN with respect to their draft legal agreement for the lease. And so we're trying to work through that. Much of it pertains to what we consider to be onerous requirements in respect of environmental liability protection and the insurance requirements. Environmental liability protection insurance is very, very expensive. And so we are really sort of looking at how can we deal with this issue with CN and examining options to deal with it. So that's more or less where we're at, and we can't proceed with moving forward with, I think we've missed our paving window in any event, but installing the drainage works, we're not going to do that until such time as we've got a finalized agreement with CN. So we're working away on that, and I'll certainly update council as soon as we've made some headway, or if there's lack of headway, where we're at and what we need to do about it.
So on this particular topic, pretty much everything's at a grinding halt, such as the ultimate sign painting, paving.
Yeah, I
pretty
mean,
much the
at this
whole
point,
ball.
assuming that we work things out and have an agreement, then Public Works would proceed with the installation of the drainage works, but paving would be delayed until the spring, first opportunity in the spring, and line painting, etc., would follow suit at that point in time for summer.
If you were to speculate, and I know it's not quite David and Goliath, when are we going to be able to arm wrestle CN on this, in your view?
Well, I'm arm wrestling them right now as we speak, and enlisting the assistance of others, and I think probably that's about as much as I can say at this point in an open meeting.
Perfect, thank you, then we'll just call that noted, and that's the end of that. No other unfinished business, we're done on that. Unfinished business, these items. Number 32, my recommendation on this is we delete the first three words, Mayor Burr and Peter, I know it only seems like February was yesterday, but I'm suggesting this is a low profile and that this is part of your operational 85% of your time. Even the modest nod will suffice for me.
Yeah, I'm struggling to nod. But it's certainly something that we'll have to, I will have to make some headway on and get back to those who were involved in that discussion. So please leave it with me.
The refreshers, these were the very significant trail maintenance committee, the ones that were going to put a lot of horsepower to this.
Yeah, they had, I think, 6 phases worked out and funding applications in with the province. I'm not sure, I don't remember if it was approved or not, but there were some aspects to it that we wanted to coordinate with them on, particularly with respect to facilities for people to use when they're out in the backcountry. And I think some of the SAR members were interested in also taking part in that discussion. So I will get back to it and be in touch with those people.
Have they surfaced again, anything coming from them since?
No, I haven't heard anything.
So truly low profile. Thank you. Number 56, which is the registry.
Yeah, so I'm getting a little bit concerned about this. I've had a few discussions with staff at West Vancouver, and initially they seemed optimistic that they would take over the service of providing the adjudication registry, and we would all just continue to be participants in that service. But apparently that's getting a second look from their finance people, and District of North Vancouver is also reviewing, but I haven't been able to connect with their staff, so I'm not sure what their position is. I did send an email on Friday just to say, hey, can I get an update, but I'm not sure where that's gonna land. So it is right up there at the top of my radar. I will continue to press and determine whether or not there will be an option to continue with one of those jurisdictions fulfilling that role. If that's not the case, if each of them decides that they want to look after the obligations associated with providing an adjudication registry themselves, as the City of North Van has done, then we will have to look at our options. One would be to similarly provide that service, and secondly would be to determine whether or not Squamish would be willing to participate in a joint service with us.
How often is this service drawn on?
Pardon me?
How often do we actually take advantage of this
Oh,
service?
very rarely. There's been very few of our tickets issued that have been taken to adjudication. Generally speaking, we stand in the black in terms of our financial obligations on the service. And we're certainly not the reason why City of North Van decided not to continue doing it. But in order to have a bylaw notice enforcement system, as we do for the issuing of tickets, which is much simpler administratively for parking tickets in particular, you do have to provide an adjudication service as part of that statutory scheme. So I would look at what does that mean for us. There are adjudicators who are readily available on a roster. So it's not, and apparently from what I understand, it's become easier and easier in terms of availability of adjudicators who are on the roster. At the beginning it was more difficult, there weren't that many. Now there's quite a few apparently, and so it might not be that onerous for us to do it. So that is an aspect that I will look at if, first preference is still to have West Van or North Van take it over and for us to participate in the same way that we have previously. But there are options if that's not going to be the case, and I will have to move on them quickly if it goes that way. So I will let you know with hopefully much more solid concrete answer next time we meet.
Okay, well, good. It looks like we have a plan A, B, and C. Good, thank you very much. It's very reassuring. Number 58, Liz Bell. I've spoken with her today. That can be deleted. She's considered it responded to. Number 59, Mr. Wyman, Mr. Peter.
I did not do this yet. So I will do that before I go away at the end of this week.
Okay, no pen, knife, and blood, but okay, done. Good. All right, that's it. Reports, staff. Who doesn't love a good ethical conduct policy review? Show of hands, thank you. All right, I had a bit of an editorial on this, if I can, before I relate this. I think the piece on this is that, I wish Jamie was here too, this is an example of how outstanding our staff are and how careful we have to be what we ask for. because I think that this is a considerable amount of work. And I think that if it's because of the uniqueness of the inauguration that it, sort of the depth of this wasn't discussed at that time. So I think that for my council colleagues, it's just a reminder that our operational folks are taxed, and if we're going to have them working on something for us, it should be something that we all agree is dear to the heart and should be done right away. Okay, enough on that one. So, to staff, one, CAO, you're on.
Okay, so I trust everyone's read the report, and what we've got is an ethical conduct policy which appears to have been written in and around 2009. It could use some updating regardless of what council decides to do. There's some inappropriate references to policies that have since been updated. There are some other aspects of it that could perhaps be better worded. But as you can see, there was a joint working group from UBCM, the Ministry of Municipal Affairs, and the Local Government Management Association, who put together a model code of conduct and 4 fundamental principles that should be, in their opinion, included in any code of conduct. And those materials are attached to this report. As well, I've attached the District of North Vancouver's Code of Conduct, which includes a model of excellence, which we had as a separate document to ours. There's a little bit of confusion in terms of the wording as to how it fits with our current ethical conduct policy, but in any event, it appears this is where it came from. I've also attached the District of Saanich Code of Conduct, which looks like it was one of the ones that the working group looked at because it looks very similar to the model code, except that it has a number of other aspects to it. There's an additional fundamental policy that they've included for, or principle for openness, and then they've also included various matters that are addressed that they felt were important for the District of Saanich. So it stands as a good example of what we could do if council's inclined to look at this and determine that you'd like to produce a new code of conduct for the Village of Lions Bay. My suggestion would be that we start with the model code of conduct that was provided by the working group, and that my suggestion is that council adopt that in the interim, and then if there's to be a discussion on how it could be tweaked or improved upon to better suit Lions Bay, essentially customize it, then that is something that could be developed over however long a period you wish to engage in that kind of a discussion. Doesn't have to be long, doesn't have to be short, but obviously it'd be great if all council's present for that kind of discussion. And the additional materials that are attached are essentially the model code with all the pointers as to different things that you can look at adding. But attachment number 5 is basically what I'm suggesting council consider starting off with in the interim as a model code, which is the basic minimum, simply adding Village of Lions Bay where appropriate.
Well, there we have it.
Why does this feel like a make-work project to me? I don't know where this is
Perhaps you
coming
missed
from.
my editorial.
But I mean, where is this coming from? I mean, we have so many things to do.
No,
and we're
it's,
talking about redoing policies.
Norm, this was at the inauguration. Neville asked that it be reviewed, and it's been reviewed.
Okay.
So, and that's fine. Innocuous enough, I asked one question when we were by ourselves. I said, Peter, does it need contemporization or an update? He said, yes, it should be tweaked. So here we are. I think if I can just take a nanosecond of time here, to Norm's point, I fear that we have to allocate our time wisely in council and our staff's time here too. So mentally I'm looking at a clock here and I have a number of minutes I'm prepared to suggest we talk about this, not to preclude that it's total agreement or polar or whatever. Ultimately, if it becomes contentious, I'll hold it off till Jamie's here. So that's my thought. So Norm, it's on the table, the work's done. The issue to me, if I can go first before I hand it back to my colleagues here, is that how much work do we want our staff to put into this? So with that, I'm going to go back to you, Norm, since you've got the...
I think it needs to be prioritized with all the other things that we have to do, and we see where it falls into the rank of things. There's a lot of important things that we have to get done, and I don't think this is one of them.
Okay.
Can I
Neville?
not take up too much time, but seeing I initiated this, let's just tell you where I got it from. I read that ethical code of conduct policy, and I looked at our ethics policy, and I was meant to sign it, and they were alarmingly different. I do think it's important to get it right. I also, when I looked at it, realised that there's two documents here, and I think it's one thing we need to clean up. What are they meant for, and who signs them? Because at night when I asked Peter, he kind of thought they were both together. They're not. One is for council, one is for council staff, board committees and so on.
Yeah.
So let's decide what they're for, and let's get them right. Personally, the Sandwich version or the one the working group came up with, I think they're great documents. I think there's been a lot of work in them. I like the idea of just adopting them. We don't need to do all of that. But they are significantly different to the way ours is in how it's presented and the flavour and the things they talk to, values and principles that our document doesn't talk to. So I think it's important enough to get it right, and that's why I raised it. I like Peter's suggestion of adopting either the Sandwich version or the fundamental principles document, whichever is the easiest way of getting that as a draft. And if whichever way you think is the quickest to get as a draft with a Lionsberg letterhead, I think that's a great way to go. I don't think we have to spend too much time. I've studied all these documents, and I'll be quite happy to sign either of those. I think they're great. They're an advancement of what we got. Back to my first point is, who are these documents for, and do we have one set of rules for councillors and one set of rules for everyone else? Through all the documents Peter gave us to look at, various municipalities flip-flop back and forth. Some of them have everyone sign the long document. Some of them have that simple model of excellence, which is just for people like committees. If we are going to use a simple version for committees, I think it should also include conflicts of interest, which is very important, which it doesn't mention. And I also think it should include a statement, and I made this previously from the audience in a meeting, the previous mayor commented on it. I also think it should include a statement that people volunteer for committees, they understand they're volunteers, and if there's any paid work or anything comes out of the committee, they have to be not part of the committee before that happens. I think that's part of the code of ethics, that's part of the conflict of interest thing, and I think we need to clear that up. So it's as much time as I feel I need to spend on it, and that's why I brought it up. But if you want to deprioritize it down the list, go ahead, but I think we could clean it up really fast, and I think it's a good statement for us to make at the beginning of our tenure.
Why don't we keep going in a counterclockwise fashion, and again, I've got my eye on the clock on this one before we go back to Peter. Councillor B.
Well, I look at the existing ones and spread over two different documents, which I think is a big mistake. I think things should be simple and easily found. I don't like the code of ethics on the second one. To me, it's just virtue signaling. And I mean, it gives everybody a warm and fuzzy feeling, but I don't know. I think we could go to kindergarten and have a kindergarten teacher write up something more appropriate and just basic how to interact with one another. And I think we don't need all the fanciness. I think we should, again, keep it simple. I was leaning between the original for the ethical conduct policy and the one that, number 4, what's it called?
The work group one.
Yeah, the work group one. The work group one is fine. I guess my biggest complaint about it is it's over 5 pages, and I just don't think we need a big document. I would like to keep it simple again. But again, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. To me, it's a lot of the stuff in there to me is a given. That we have to sign, it just seems kind of pointless. We've already given our affirmations or oaths when we sign on for a year. And I just think if we can't be trusted, we shouldn't be sitting in the seat. I mean, but I guess the thing about the ethical conduct one and the first one, it's got some consequences to it, so that if somebody goes sort of off track or something like that, there are some ways and means of encouraging them back onto that. I see some benefit there, but if people want to discuss it more, I'm not going to be an obstructionist on it, but again, I don't want to spend a lot more time on it either.
All right, thank you. I'll be quick, and then we'll do one more round, and then we'll do nods or however we do this. As I think some of my colleagues have said, basically I'd sign everything because I expect to be held to a high standard. So, you know, whatever paper came forward would be fine, generally speaking. However we got it, the one that we have right now, which is the page 27, that's my main concern, is 4 things. 1, it's short. 2, it's easy to read. I'm a bullet point kind of guy. I like it. Number 3, there is no ambiguity. It is very clear what those statements all say. And number 4, this is not always the happiest topic. It has a significant amount of enforcement for non-compliance embedded within it. And dare I say, I've had occasion where the situations in my time being elected has required enforcement. So that all said, I believe that the document needs upgrading because it just does. So I think I'm not trying to be a peacemaker on this one. We mull for a second, and whoever wants to make a proposal will go with that.
Sorry, can I just
Yes.
add a couple of things? With respect to conflict of interest provisions, which both of the other ones attached as examples, North Vancouver and Saanich, have within their provisions. When you apply that to people who are not elected officials, there is a difference in terms of statutory obligations, and that arises because they are not subject to the conflict of interest provisions in the community charter, section 100 to 106 or thereabouts. So provisions that are intended to apply to non-elected officials should be worded in a different way.
Thank you very much.
And not that they shouldn't be brought to the attention of those persons, but sometimes the wording should speak to them more directly as non-elected volunteers on advisory bodies, or whether they're staff. Similarly, enforcement provisions don't hold the same sway with respect to non-elected officials. Both of these examples also contain enforcement provisions. So I think that without spending a lot of time and effort, I would be happy to take a quick stab at adding what I think would be suitable and relevant to providing a Lions Bay document that follows the 4 fundamental principles that have been worked out at great effort, quite frankly, by some good people who've come together to work on that project over the past year. And I think that it would be prudent and wise for council to take advantage of the work that they have done, but perhaps to customize it just a little bit so that it speaks to some of the things that I perceive around this table are important to council. So I could do that fairly quickly without spending too much time, and hopefully get it to the stage where you're just saying, oh, how about we just change this to this or that to that, and adopting something. I don't know if that's something that would be amenable to council or not.
Well, we'll go in reverse this time. That would be fine to me, because per Norm's point and mine, I would sign anything that made sense. So, and your time is valuable. So if it can be contemporized and done in, to use the term, the Lions Bay way, I'd be happy with that. Councillor Bean?
So what, just for clarity, you're talking about the working group one you would modify?
Yeah, basically attachment 5, which is the working group one, already using Village of Lions Bay within it, but I would customize it a little bit to add a couple things that would make sense for Lions Bay.
I would find that an agreeable outcome.
I'm good with that.
Neville, good? Norm? Aye,
Sounds
we're
fine.
done.
Yeah, we can never stop learning, so.
Okay, so let's just do this quickly. Motion that the CIO takes this away and makes it a perfect document for second meeting in December, or are you thinking the first one and kill yourself before you go on furlough? Or while you're having margaritas at the beach?
Yeah, I don't know if you want me to write something while I'm having a
Okay.
margarita on the beach, but
Second session?
yeah, okay.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Good. Carried. Okay, who's recently been on holidays and came back with the parking meter revenue report?
It's technically Haley Cook's report, but yes.
Okay.
I didn't do it while I was away. Had to give her credit for it. Do you want me to present it or-
I can go.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, kicking it uphill. Oh,
My name is not on this report.
well, you see, who holds the power in this place? Boy.
So this provides a quick comparable to our parking meter revenue 2017 versus 2018. If you work it out per week prior to expenses, because the expenses were different in the trial year than they were this past year, if you work it out on the gross basis, in 2017 we made $1,500 a week roughly, and this year $1,270 a week. That being said, we had lots of issues with connectivity and the meters speaking to the internet. And going forward, we would certainly make that a top priority to solve that issue. There's a few things that we could do to do that. But yeah, other than that, this is just a quick, we've got all the numbers in now, and here's what they were report.
There we go. Any questions? Neville?
Yeah, just a quick question. So it was actually, I think I worked at 890 a week after you take away the fees or
Yeah, I did it before expenses
with
because,
the expenses.
Yeah.
So do we know how it ramps up and ramps down? Does it make sense to extend it? Is that a suggestion? Because, you know, we made it 5 weeks longer this time, brought in more revenue. Are we suggesting maybe another 5 weeks? Leave it up all year round? Is that coming out of this? Or?
no, I think staff's recommendation when we review this in detail and provide a way forward for 2019 will be that we do this from the middle of May to the middle of September. So essentially, is that 4 or 5 months? In any event.
4.
And that we not extend the rest of the year. Those are sort of the key months where we're trying to have people park where we need them to park. And part of that rationale revolves around providing pay parking for visitors at Lions Bay Beach Park, because residents can park on the street with their parking passes and visitors cannot. That's one aspect to it, but staff will come back with a more detailed report and a recommendation on a program for 2019 in due course.
Okay. And do we allocate these funds to the upgrade of the parking lots, or is it just strictly general coffers?
It's just-
Essentially, it goes to help pay for the bylaw officers. We keep it within the bylaw department to cover expenses. Like, there's no surplus. By the time we pay our expenses and pay the bylaw officers, there's still a net cost to that department.
Okay. I didn't think it was further costs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else? Can I have a motion to receive? Thank you, Fred. Second, Norm. Thank you. All in favor? Good. Done. Okay. Who loves the beach park?
Okay.
Peter?
So, this is a long report, and I'm not going to read through the whole thing. We'll touch on a few highlights, however. So, one thing to keep in mind, I think, is that the survey that was done last year around this time did produce 128 responses. I don't think we should lose sight of that. That's important information to keep in mind vis-a-vis the feedback that we've received after publishing the draft revitalization plan. Some of the, just quickly running through the list that's in the report of the key amenities that have been proposed in the draft. We have the entry / book hut / bike rack / garbage. Not much comment on that. The garbage proposal was to have a pit, basically, and so that we don't have overflowing garbage. And there will be some things to work out on that, but not really a contentious issue. Ping pong tables, people didn't seem to really provide much supportive comment on. Sports court, not a winner for most public feedback. And that would have been located at the south end of the upper grassy area, the flat area that where we do have events. And part of the rationale for having that would have been, well, this would be a good surface for, if a band's got to set up, or other aspects of events that are held there for Firefighters Day, or Eat Together in the park, which would probably become an annual event. So, notwithstanding that maybe a sports court isn't the way to go, and that people really do want to retain as much grass and natural environment as possible, maybe one idea that could be looked at is something like sticking poles in the ground so that they're receptacle poles, so that you could stick erect a tent quite quickly. I don't know, it was just a thought. Youth playground being refurbished, there wasn't really any opposition to that. Picnic tables and relocated flagpole. So in the draft concept plan, the picnic tables are shown as being, sorry, page is that on?
Page 105? Is this what
Yeah.
you're
there you go.
105.
105, thank you. The picnic tables are shown near the top of the plan. Thank you. Sort of adjacent to the washroom area. There was some comments about the desirability of having covered picnic tables, or the addition of shade. So one thought that came to mind was maybe the covered area that's at the very bottom of the drawing, number 11 on the drawing, which is sort of a covered picnic area right by the beach. There was some opposition to that. Perhaps a covered area over the picnic tables near the top might be something to consider instead. Washrooms. So the question really seems to be between new washrooms and upgraded washrooms. And that's something that perhaps I can come back to later in the report. Swings refurbished, no opposition to that, I don't think. New stairs, that's a go. New kayak, canoe, and stand-up paddleboard racks. People were supportive of that, but didn't like the idea of switching from one side of the park to the other side. Concerns included exposure to the elements, as well as it being right out in the open, maybe not the nicest thing to be looking at, as well as perhaps concerns about theft, being adjacent to the marina and easy access. New top playground, support for that it seemed. A roof picnic area I've already spoken about. In the recommendations from the Lions Bay Beach Park Advisory Committee, they had looked at, because we were going to be taking out the plan was to take out the existing gazebo. The thought was, there was a discussion about whether or not to have a replacement structure, and if so, where should that be located? And the committee's opinion was that it should be located lower down on the slope. I think there was some discussion at one point about where the trees had just been removed that were decaying and rotten that we had to take out. And that kind of tied in with the terracing idea, which was part of that discussion. Speaking of terracing, that wasn't something that the post-plan feedback had any support for. People seemed to think that that plus the performance patio was not necessarily a desirable feature of the plan, and that was sort of, the preference was to have the natural grass slope and all the way down to the seawall. Beach shower is almost finished, I think.
It's done.
Done. And revitalized pier also seemed to have a fair bit of support. In terms of so that sort of summarizes the feedback that we've got, other than sort of more detailed descriptions that are contained within the report. In terms of the financial considerations, coming back to the washroom structure, that would be the biggest single expense. Replacement would be upwards of $300,000. At our first examination of what those comparables look like from other municipalities. The concern from staff's perspective, from my perspective, would be that those if the preference is for upgrades as opposed to replacement, we'd have to be really cautious about what do those upgrades look like, because some of the ideas that were suggested for upgrades, new stalls, more storage, things like that would actually require a larger footprint. So some of these things that people think, well, let's just upgrade it, would not be possible. So there's that to keep in mind, as well as if we're going to spend money upgrading things, and some of these things, top playground and some of the other features that need to be replaced, if we end up spending that kind of money, we start to get to a point in my mind that you really need to look at whether or not it's better to parlay that or leverage that money that you're going to have to spend in any event to get 3 times the amount in free grant money, and do something like what's being proposed, subject to amendments as per the feedback. So I've laid out in the report what that looks like in terms of adding in a 25% contingency on the estimates that we came up with originally. So that puts us in the neighborhood of $785,000. If we're looking at the community culture and recreation grant that the provincial and federal governments have recently come out with as part of the Canada Infrastructure Program, so that's we'd be looking at paying 27 cent dollars on that kind of a project. Which would amount to roughly 210,000. A little bit of that could come out of net sale proceeds from 52 Brunswick in respect of a proportional cost in respect of the stairs that need to be replaced. So that would be roughly about 200,000 that the municipality would need to come up with in order to have a project that ostensibly would be worth, just say 800,000 for round numbers. The grant deadline for the CCR for short is January 23rd, so council's going to need to consider this as a high priority consideration and to advise staff so that we have enough time. If the determination is to go ahead with an application, then we'll have to refine our estimates, and as well, the recommendation here is that the Lions Bay Beach Park Advisory Committee be reconstituted to provide recommendations on amendments in accordance with the feedback that has been received. And that's, so what we see in the recommendations for this report is that either council decides, yep, this looks good, let's go ahead and let's get the Beach Park Committee to reconvene and come up with recommendations for amendments, or council says, we need to weigh this in terms of both the cost and in terms of the staff effort required to move it forward. And so that would be a deferring of the decision until such time as council's had a little bit of time to think on this and meet again December 4th, followed by a strategic planning session shortly thereafter. So council could have an opportunity to decide where this fits within their overall strategic plan.
Thank you very much, Peter, and for your presentation and for not quite a full telephone book of stuff, but certainly a small community telephone book of information, which I think it's nice to have it all in one place. Just to editorialize, the beach park has come up many times over the last year. The last one, as per the report, was a recommendation to go phase 1, phase 2. Here we are. I can tell everyone this, that sitting in the chair, which looks a lot like the one in my house, a great majority of my day is phoning our MLA, MP, and others trying to get grant funds. And even to the point of asking Mr. Sturdy when I saw him on Saturday why he hadn't sent a letter to the minister when he'd been sitting on it for a week when he'd endorsed one for Bowen Island earlier. So we play hardball here. We want the grants. And Goldsmith Jones has been apprised when I mentioned to her that our 50th birthday is coming up in 2 short years, and if the feds could dig into their birthday fund from whatever it is, that we get a bunch of stuff. So I think she's working on it. I guess bottom line here to my colleagues is that there's infrastructure stuff and then there's nice to have stuff, which is the beach park. And I don't delineate the two. It is a nice to have, but the backgrounder to this is that north of 125 people did the first survey, a bunch in the second. The previous sitting council confirmed the phase 1 and 2. I had to beg the CFO to get the amount for the plan into the renovations into the 5-year plan so that we can even talk about it. So I think what Peter's done here is put a very good suggestion forward. I'm not one to defer. So the piece 2 on page 60 of A is a recommendation to proceed, B is to defer, and to me that is really not a good choice because of the shortness of the grant period that we're targeting here. And the beach committee can be gathered within a week or two and probably update the document so that it's in a position to come to council and then go back to staff. So the long and the short of this is that I would bet every day on 27-cent dollars. And I think that our very tired 48-year facility needs a significant upgrade, not quite to the John Lawson Park level, but in the Lions Bay, nice and practical view. I'll open it up. There we go. Fred?
I'm inclined to move ahead on it rather than defer it, but I have a lingering question. It has to do with the revitalized pier. Are the cost estimates including the revitalized pier, or is that over and above? Because I think anything you start going into the ocean has a huge price tag onto it with all the DFO requirements.
Do you remember, Nye, what that?
So included is a 50,000 allocation for revitalization of the pier. Revitalization of the pier simply consists of reinforcing the rock armoring and creating a safe surface on which to put a picnic table or a bench or seating. Not extending it, not enlarging it, just using the existing footprint. So in terms of DFO, it's an existing use. There's no further additional encroachment or loss of marine habitat.
Okay, then it's not for launching the kayaks and everything, right?
It could be with slight modifications, yeah, it could be.
Okay, because, you know, I'm hearing the arguments of keeping the kayaks where they are versus moving them to the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And the other issue is, I've heard some complaints about people not liking the idea of taking the crafts through the swimming area. And if they're gonna put it on the pier, that would solve that problem.
It wasn't
If I might
considered.
say that we're getting into the minutia on this
Yeah.
versus the big picture issue.
right.
So thank you, Fred, on that one. I would also say that in fairness, sitting as chair of the Beach Park Committee, every possible ask was on paper. So there's truly is nice to haves, and some things I'm sure could be shed.
Mhm.
Can I ask, where is the pier you're talking about?
In front of the Coltarts place.
Oh, that's it, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
If we
Oh,
can
that's
date if we can
public
date ourselves.
It's public land.
Yeah. Sorry, Fred.
Oh, it was just
No.
a note tonight. I was down at the marina the other day, this is a bit of a side note, but the buoy has disappeared under the water, and it's not showing anymore. And in recollection, they've marked it as no vessels permitted. It's a prohibition on boating, so if we use the existing buoy, we can't have kayaks going in the swim area, as opposed to the no motorized buoy with the circle no with a prop on it.
Shouldn't be kayaks in the swimming area anyway. I think it's a law. Can't have them in the swimming area.
So I think that's a decision that's got to be made in regard to this.
Okay.
You're not supposed to have them in the swimming area.
Anything else, Fred?
Nope.
Neville, anything?
Yeah, I've written down option 2, which is, I guess, been described as deferred, not necessarily the way I read it. I did think deferring, part of this has been new, I guess. I did think of deferring until we had the strategic planning session to make sure we all agreed where it lined up with the other priorities. There clearly is a sort of parallel course here. I mean, I think the first thing that needs to be done on either course is to go back to the recommendations in the report that summarise what the last residents' input was and list those as what residents see as a priority and the nice-to-haves, and then see where the number is. I mean, I think that step could happen either way. We need to do that step next anyway. But I would like to look at it in light with the other stuff we intend to do. I think the way when I read the document the first time, clearly there's always a risk, but it felt to me that staff were saying we could do that and still meet the grant, but with a better definition. And also think we need to be cognizant of what the wishes of the people of the community is. I know it's only 128 and a large number, but it's all we have, and it isn't so we've got to accept it as representative. And clearly, my reading of it, as well as the summary, was that people didn't want all of it.
Okay. Norm?
I reluctant to dither on this, especially if we have, like you said, 27-cent dollars facing us, which is a pretty good option.
I think that's the key piece on this one, frankly. And so if I hold your thought and listen to Neville, I think the delay piece here is that, in my view, when I made the recommendation for phase 1, phase 2, somewhere embedded within the report is that there would be an outcry from the community if it wasn't proceeded with, because basically we wasted their time on a survey, we wasted dozens and dozens of resident volunteers' time to come up with this plan, and council's view of a sense of the community, which is why we had the drawings rendered and placed on paper. So I would think that a deferral to consider it in conjunction with other items, whatever those might be, would have ramifications. So to that, any further discussion? Because I'm going to make the recommendation. I'll ask for a seconder, more discussion, and then we'll go to the...
Can I ask
Yes,
if
Mrs.
other
Allen?
bids, did you put this out for bids to other,
The staff will do the work to come up with the numbers
okay,
before it's proceeded with, but the idea is to get the grant and try and get everything accelerated.
It will go to an open bid process where any number of contractors and architects and,
right. Because I
And-
noticed on the drawings, the amphitheatre at the top is not even Lions Bay land, the way it was designed, right? Because originally, the park was 2 lots that was given to the residents of the village. And the access to those lots is actually like an extension of Lions Bay Avenue. And then there was the marina lot and then the railway area there. And that's where the drawings for an amphitheatre was on that lot, and it's not even our road.
Yeah, so staff have reviewed all of the historical files and reviewed the legal agreements. There is a long-term lease agreement with Marina with respect to the land at the top, which
And the rail,
which we wouldn't put a structure on. You know, it'd be things that are easily removed, or that we wouldn't build a big bandstand or something up top on that space for that reason.
of course, yeah, but it's on the drawings, I just.
Okay, thank you. So here's what I propose to do. I will make a motion on the recommendation, and I'll ask for a seconder, then we'll go to discussion, and then to vote. So my recommendation would be, without reading it all, and this is again page 69, that 1A and 2, it starts with that the Lions Bay and ends up with concept plans. So the area marked B is not part of my recommendation. May I have a seconder? Thank you. Any discussion? I'd be happy to go around this again. Norm, let's go counterclockwise. No comment is fine too?
No, you cut me off before. So
I apologize. And
that's fine.
do the look, okay? Give the rookie a chance
it's
here.
Fine. I think that we can't lose sight of the idea that we can do things in parallel, so we can apply for a grant and we can also make changes. None of these things are set in stone. I think it would be irresponsible not to apply for the grant.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the end of it for me. So we apply with the best conceivable concept, and then if we decide we need to make adjustments because there's some nuances to the plan that aren't sitting well with people, we can do that. There's nothing stopping us from doing that. We're also not committing anything. Even if we apply for the grant and find out we can't afford it, we can back out. So I feel very strongly that we should meet that January 23 deadline and apply.
Thank you. And I apologize for cutting you off. Can you give me a hand signal, like something like that?
I'll just tell you.
Good. Okay, Neville. Neville?
Still a little concerned about seduction of the 27-cent dollar. That sort of, people get too excited about that. We don't control the budget. The budget balloons. We've done this before. when we thought we were getting some cheap money. We need to, I still believe we need to take the time to describe what's the bare minimum, what, I know it's only 27 cents on the dollar, but it's still over $200,000 that we have to find that could be spent on other things. So I still have that concern, so I guess I'm still wanting to go slowly into this.
Okay, thank you. Again, Fred, close the loop.
Yeah, as I understand, if the way I'm reading it, 1A is going ahead essentially, but 2 is to get the group back in parallel and provide recommendations on amendments to the draft. So, I
think the 2 is for the committee to clean up the work order.
Oh, but is that not what you're asking for?
I mean, what I'm pushing for is not to miss this application deadline, because it doesn't commit us regardless. I think we should apply, and I don't want to overcomplicate it.
Right.
Okay.
Just to your point, Councillor Bain, 2 I think is a worthwhile step for us to engage in. The only way that we wouldn't do number 2 would be if council was to right now go with one of the other options and say, no, we're not going to do this at all. Then we wouldn't do 2. It's really a case of where council wants to come down on 1A or 1B.
All right, if going one last chance for discussion before we go to vote. Any more discussion? Any ideas? Peter, last call, you're good? Right, then I will call a vote on the recommendation that I'd made, and all in favor, raise your hands. Opposed? Thank you. No. Recorded or not recorded? If you're not recorded, it shows as carried.
He's opposed. So
Opposed.
It's recorded as
Okay.
opposed.
Okay, thank you. The Works Manager.
So essentially in 2016, a sinkhole developed on Bayview Road, just in front of 242. Public Works excavated the site of that failure, determined that the culvert was rotten, the bottom has deteriorated. We did a temporary repair. That temporary repair is held. However, we have noticed further sinkhole developing, and cost to replace that culvert has been obtained. We've gone out, we've got 3 quotes. The lowest quote was $19,500. So I'm looking for support in replacing that culvert. Or direction from council.
Peter, anything more to add?
I think the key consideration here is that, as I understand it, if we don't proceed with this, the culvert is in imminent danger of collapse, and it's just a matter of time, and not much time, I think. And that when it does go, that we will be stuck acting on it on an emergency basis, taking whatever price is available, which will likely be significantly more than what we're seeing on the table tonight. So I think that's what we're talking about.
Good, thank you.
Question. Is the work you're planning compatible with the engineering design for that whole area?
No. The engineer design for that entire area was to install an underground storm network that would negate the need for any of the culverts that are along that stretch of road. The idea, the pipe could be salvaged because it's a high-density polyethylene. We could reuse the pipe, but no, it will not negate any of the work that's planned as part of the upgrade. As the CAO mentioned, This is a culvert that's in line for imminent failure. It is subsiding in other areas. Staff have looked up the culvert and have determined that another sinkhole is forming.
Well, we won't be using the word sinkhole in the village update, will we? Okay, then, second, yes, Neville?
Quick question. I didn't know about this major work going on, so I absolutely agree you need to do it. It's preventive maintenance, if nothing else. And can't let things keep getting worse. But I had a couple of questions. One, did we consider doing the work ourselves with our own hoe?
We did consider doing the work ourselves. However, we don't have all the necessary equipment. We don't have steel road plates. In order to do this work, we'd have to do it alternating single lane. We'd have to put steel plates to allow traffic over while we do the other half. The village doesn't own any steel plates that are suitable for traffic. The trash pump that's going to be required to bypass the water that's flowing through that culvert right now, we don't have a pump that's large enough for that. And we would have to rent compaction equipment as well.
Okay. Not reasons, I guess. This is the lump sum price?
Yeah.
Good, Neville, can you put forward the motion to recommend?
Yes, before the motion to accept, yes.
Norm, seconder, thank you. Any last discussion? All in favor? Carried.
So is that all parts 1, 2, and 3 of the recommendation?
Yes. We're an all-in kind of council now. Mr. Bain.
Yeah, got a recommendation here that the Village of Lions Bay take active steps in pursuing the creation of a dedicated position for a part-time emergency coordinator or a deputy emergency program coordinator in the first quarter, well, I guess starting in the first quarter of 2019.
Sorry, just,
Hang on, sorry, I jumped ahead of my page, I apologize, sorry, I turned my page. Fred, that was a good warm-up, Fred, but we're gonna hold it back.
I have to say that all again.
You know, funny, I was looking, where did it go on my pages here? Okay, I apologize, Fred. The next piece is I have this as I carefully check my stuff now, is the mayor on appointments to standing committees, which we will defer to closed. And if I can go to the council section as
Hang
well.
on, before you move on past that, there was the addition to the agenda regarding the amendment of the terms of reference.
Thank you. Which
So,
are on the
I'll
table
just-
here.
Yeah, I'll just pass this around quickly here.
Thank you.
It's extremely small amendment. Not a lot of reading required. It's
Oh, I have a copy. I've got one. I have one.
okay.
Thanks.
No, but you don't have these. So the choice here really, because the terms of reference state that the infrastructure committee shall be comprised of 3 members of council and 3 members of the public. Council will be entertaining the idea of having more than that number. So if that's the case, then there will need to be an amendment of the terms of reference. And it could be either make it 4 and 4 or just say equal numbers, because you do need to have equal numbers for standing committee of elected and non-elected members. And I bring this up now, but it might be presumptuous for you to go ahead and consider adopting this amendment prior to considering in close the list of people that you're considering for, or that the mayor's considering appointing, because it's his appointment for a standing committee. So I bring it up now, but perhaps it should be deferred in terms of, actually, no, it couldn't be, actually.
You
No,
can't
you're gonna have to-
defer.
you're gonna have-
It's
no,
happening now.
Because it'll have to be in place for you to consider
Yeah.
passing a motion with respect
All
to the other matter. So I'll leave it with you.
Okay, let me,
Probably run circles
thank-
around myself.
Thank you for that smoky room that you've left. Let me show some leadership here. Okay, before us is the amended infrastructure committee terms of reference. Fred, if I can do this on your behalf. The proposal is to change it to equal numbers of public and council. And Peter's already given the reasons, and we're going to talk about potential membership later on. So the recommendation on the table is to accept this as presented by the CAO. In terms of getting a discussion here, I'll put the recommendation forward. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Fred. A discussion? Yes.
I guess equal makes it easy enough to deal with the next part because it doesn't put a number on it, so that's good. For my benefit, how do these numbers count? The mayor is ex officio on all committees. Does he count as one of the numbers or not?
It could be either way, but preferably
Previously it was committee
it can actually work both ways. So to eliminate any confusion or potential confusion, to have absolute clarity, it would be my recommendation to appoint the mayor as a member of the committee, if that, as opposed to relying on him in an ex officio capacity to count as one of the elected officials.
That was the difference, I didn't understand it. Okay, so now that would clear up what was going to say on the previous one. Just one other thing, the top of the page, in this division, if you go to the BC Community Charter, I think that's wrong actually. I think it's Division 4. In all our terms of reference all say that. Someone maybe can just look at that.
I didn't double check this and whether it has changed or not over the years, but
It's Part 5, Division 4, I think.
Should we pause to look it up?
I don't have a copy of the charter with me, but
Sean would.
just see
Sean,
if
step
that,
in there. You want to do that? Okay, we'll pause for a minute.
Trying to find where I wrote it down. And I think you'll find that all our terms of reference have the same stuff. Yeah, Part 5, Division 4 is what I wrote down.
What was that, Neville?
Part 5, Division 4. Standing is committees.
Thank you.
Oh, I see.
just check one more thing here. actually be Division 2 as well, which is council proceedings. I think we could be safe by saying Part 5 Divisions 2 and 4.
Sure.
Fine with that, Neville? You fine? Good. May I suggest the amendment?
Divisions 2 and 4.
Yep, thank you. Is it- Anything else, Peter, on the formal part?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, good. Neville, you had the floor before you stopped. Anything else?
No.
Good. I'm not sure whether we're doing hands or we're ready to go here. I'm just kind of nodding away there. Did we put this to motion and now discussion?
Yeah, I think Fred seconded it.
Fred seconded, discussion is Neville. Any other discussion?
How did we originally come up with 3 and 3?
The mayor was ex officio and not counted.
Yeah, I think
No,
Carl is not counted.
He was ex officio.
No, I mean, but it reads 3 and 3, and that's a total of 6 on a committee. Is there a need to cap it? If we see equal numbers, is it gonna be a 20-person committee at some
Well,
point?
well,
Okay.
you know,
The council's every
I mean, apart from this bit of legislation, to me, if we had 10 of the world's best experts, they could outnumber the council members tomorrow.
Well, yeah, you'd be stuck with the legislation that says you can't do that. However, I think the thing to bear in mind is for standing committee, it's the mayor who decides whether or not it's needed, and secondly, who's going to be on it. So, kind of a moot point in a way, but
Okay, so
yeah,
this really is
I
just
take
a
your
clerical
concern.
exercise.
It's basically 3 and 3 wasn't going to work, as you'll soon see. But if we say equal numbers, then if someday it goes back to 3 and 3, we don't have to amend it again. I don't think we're going to get 10 and 10.
No. All right, any more discussion? All right, then I'll close the discussion and we'll go to a vote. All in favor? Carried, thank you. All right. Now we're at the, again, on the agenda. Pass the infrastructure onto the appointments to the select committee, which is the memorial committee, and that will be done and closed and reported out afterwards. And again, apologies, Councillor Bain, for getting you all fired up and asking you to dose yourself. It's all yours now.
Fine. I'm looking at the agenda, where are we?
You're on page page 115 is your report.
Yeah, I got that one, okay. Okay, I read it out already, should I read it again? Fresh out of memories?
Let's refresh our minds.
Recommendation that the Village of Lions Bay take active steps in pursuing the creation of a dedicated position for a part-time emergency program coordinator or a deputy emergency program coordinator in the first quarter of 2019.
That's your motion. Is there a seconder? Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, discussion. Start with you, Councillor Bain.
I think we've got it pretty well laid out in the document here. It is necessary. Well, let me back up a bit. One of the key problems, I think, is we never seem to be getting around to actually establishing and maintaining the emergency program committee. And to have a dedicated program coordinator, it doesn't draw on existing staff who are already overworked, in my opinion. And not only that, somebody who's in the emergency program field has all the connections and all the networking capability of somebody who knows all the contacts and what you can do. It takes a lot less research for somebody who makes a career out of this than expecting our our staff to come and put on a different hat and try to make the best of it. It seems we've been so long in having an emergency program committee actually sitting again. We really need to get up to speed on it because we do have, well, let me put it this way, North Shore Emergency Management on the North Shore views us as having a higher amount of emergencies per capita than they do. And consequently, we are not allowed in North Shore Emergency Management by the 3 participating communities because our call volume is higher than the per capita we would pay into it. That's what I get from the director of NSEM. So we are on our own in a sense, but rather than be totally on our own, I think we would be relying on the networking capability of a dedicated emergency program coordinator. And I think that would probably bring in some of the resources as well that we can't afford on our own. And just like the ESS in Lions Bay, and some of our members go and help out other communities when they're in distress. And we have that capability even now, but it would be so much smoother to make spaces filled by other communities who are willing to cooperate with us for the Emergency Operations Center, for example. And I also think it's unfair to expect our existing staff to set up and run an Emergency Operations Center because it's not just putting on a little vest or anything, it's a whole different mindset of running an emergency situation, particularly in a disaster. So there's all those aspects of it, and also there's the planning aspect of it. I would much prefer to see in our community somebody who can make Lions Bay specific plans and not just give us a general overview. What I have in mind is when it comes to an evacuation plan, for example, it's easy to pull a generic evacuation plan off the web. There's one done by the province that's good generically, but the specifics aren't here for our unique community. And as I mentioned in the report here, or into the report, we have areas, particularly in the higher elevations in Lions Bay, that the residents are on cul-de-sacs. And if we have an interface fire, it's going to be a challenge to find a way and evacuation routes to get these people out. And again, I think staff have too much on their plate already to sit down and put their boots on and go through all these areas and find out, could we make trails, could we do this, could we have areas of refuge, or there's all kinds of different ways of dealing with it. I'm no expert on it, so I can't make a recommendation. I think having a professional program coordinator would be our best solution.
Again?
Just wondering if I could add for the financial aspect, we did have this position in the 2018 budget commencing July 1st, 1 day a week, and then it is actually in the 5-year plan. So just in terms of financial consideration, it actually is in the 5-year plan for 1 day a week for all of 2019.
We also had an amount for a consultant to do an initial gap
Assessment.
analysis and then provide a prioritized list of things that we ought to be doing that person would do 1 day a week. Was the initial plan.
I mean, this role is obviously going to want to spend money, so how do we have a budget for that, or is that something we have to work on?
I think this is sort of
Yeah,
evolving. And
it was evolving.
We haven't had a
It
lot
was
of
sort of
time
the
to talk
consultant
about
was going to tell us that, and we probably would have put it into the 2019 budget. Sorry, I interrupted. Yeah.
I'm just going to say that re-examining what our original plan was, we may, depending on who may be out there available to fulfill this kind of a position on such a limited part-time basis, which is a challenge. We were kind of thinking, well, maybe we don't need the consultant. Maybe the EPC or deputy EPC could assess where we're at, update our plan, customize it for Lions Bay as part and parcel of that person's job function. Maybe it wouldn't be a .1, maybe, or a .2, maybe it'd be a 2-day week. You know, somewhere in there, 1 to 2 days, I don't know. We'd have to look at that. But I agree with Councillor Bain that we do, it is an area that, you know, it's been on staff's work plan for the last couple of years. We haven't got to it. It ought to be a high priority item because of its importance from a safety perspective. And I do think that we need to allocate the resources and to follow through and start doing some of the things that we haven't been doing that we need to do.
When you say allocate resources, you're not just talking about the wage of this person, you're also talking about capital for whatever this person might need, whether it's equipment or maps or hiring people to do stuff. I mean,
Yes.
that person's gonna wanna spend money.
Yes, and we do have every year, we do put about $5,000 or $6,000 in the EOC budget for supplies, which hasn't been spent.
Okay.
So to your point, we would have to take a closer look, see what type of supplies they would need, but there is some money in the budget. There was an acknowledgement, even without this person, that we need to be spending money just to equip our EOC. Currently, our EOC is not, it should have laptops and things, and it doesn't have that. So we have been putting some money. I don't know if it's been sufficient, but we have acknowledged that point.
Right.
And then I guess with the help of this person, we would be able to fine tune what we actually did need.
I don't want to certainly spend too much time getting myself up to speed on what everyone else probably knows, but is there a connection between this role and the search and rescue guys?
The emergency program coordinator would work with search and rescue because they would work with ESS and the fire department and interface with the police as well.
So to Norm's point, I'm imagining in an emergency, most of the capital expenditure, the tools and equipment, probably that's where we're going to have access to get it from, I would imagine. So I don't think there's
They're two distinct programs, though. You
do
shouldn't,
we need to duplicate things, or can we rely on it?
no, the SAR is not the same thing as fulfilling our obligations.
No, I understand that.
Yeah.
But it's, in the case of an emergency, would we be able to rely on a sizable amount of infrastructure and tools and equipment next door, is what I'm wondering.
In an emergency where SAR is required, then they would be fulfilling the response to that call. We probably wouldn't even be calling the EOC together, not even to level 1 for most SAR things. On the other hand, if they're searching for bodies because there's been an earthquake, then,
I was thinking the opposite way around. If we had an emergency, it's unlikely to imagine that they're going to not be there to be of assistance to come to aid. I was thinking of it the other way around. But okay, I think I understand the answer. My other thought had been, when I was thinking that, is there any chance there's people that are part of search and rescue that would be suitably qualified, would want to take the courses, and then you could really get some sort of correlation? Because I mean, a lot of them are part-timers anyway. That was just a thought. And the reason I say that, because I've been on big mine sites where they have like whole communities to be built for people to live. And the best people we found to do this stuff is private companies that are made up of volunteer firefighters. And I've done that on big projects with thousands of people living in camps. So, just a thought.
I think it would depend on the individual. Like, there's some people in SAR that are so SAR focused that being an emergency program coordinator would be a distraction for them. And similarly, there's some emergency program coordinators that are good at organizing and educating and stuff, but they don't have the skills of a search and rescue professional or a volunteer, pardon me. So it could be, but may not. I don't know.
Okay. Anyway, to what's on the table, just would support.
And you can open an EOC without requiring SAR. Like the last time we opened an EOC, it was for a water shortage because of a landslide, so SAR and the firefighters weren't involved at all.
Sure.
It was actually the CIO who had to step into that role, and the public works manager, and they pretty much were here 24 hours a day, distributing water, giving regular updates. It tends to be more the communication aspect, and then they engage SAR and the firefighters, but the actual coordination, like Nasimo in the North Shore, is actually the control center who sends those different teams out, but the EOC function is really quite separate.
Thank you. If I could mention this, just to round this up before we go for one last round of discussion. You know, to editorialize from my experience over the last term, we've talked about this position for years and just simply not executed it. Quite frankly, the previous council held a lot of things and we pushed a lot of stuff forward. This did not get executed, although we had budgeted for it. So we recognized the need. And, you know, there's a partially completed fire plan. I think what has not been mentioned here is that Councillor Bain, in his usual fashion of going farther than I'd asked him to go, actually has potential recruits for this position in hand. And that's without exploring the SAR people or other ones. So it's actually, I mean, ultimately the council's not going to interview these people. We can guess who that's going to be. So, you know, we have, you know, the budget, the birds in hand, a definite need. If you watch the Weather Channel and you see those poor folks anywhere in California, gentlemen, I can tell you, on our watch, I don't want to have to be saying that we had the budget, but we don't have an evacuation plan, and we didn't do it because, you know, we were worried about capital it might cost, depending on what this thing is. So two things that I'll leave with, and I get Councillor Bain to nod. I think one of the things he told me is that these individuals who are quite seasoned, and not to hold you to this, or whether they marketed to you, that they frequently bring in more money than what it costs them because they know the angles of the government to pitch for grants and other one-off kind of things. From my perspective, this is really quite a no-brainer position that we desperately need, and that it's a fairly soft win, and it's one that we can execute within a quarter. I'll open it back to the floor before we go to votes. Any other commentary? Okay, so then the motion is, as Councillor Bain had read out, I'll go to vote then. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Fred. If you guys would give me a better hint, I wouldn't have editorialized so long.
So what's your plan on that one?
Well, just know that Sean is going to bet me for the time that meeting ends. Okay.
So, hold on, sorry, I know we voted on this already, but you said we'd be able to execute on this in the first quarter. So is that's a goal? We're
That would
gonna
be the
achieve
goal.
that goal, or?
Well, okay. Well, let me just refresh myself.
To some extent, it may depend upon availability
Yeah.
of suitably certified personnel. One of the people that Councillor Bain spoke with, I also spoke with, and they're not available until March. But they're not necessarily available then either. So I think it's a case of speaking to a few different people and putting out, formulating a job description, which I've got a draft of already, and tweaking that a bit and seeing what we get back.
For me, Norm, everything is going to be in the next quarter.
I know,
And once we're finished with that quarter, it'll be the next quarter.
Set ourselves up for some.
Yeah, I mean,
some
lesson
wins.
learned from the last 4 years. Okay. All right, good. We're next up on the Board of Variance, which is always fascinating reading. And if Neville did not know, this is an independent body from us.
Okay, understood that. So this is all we get to see.
Yes, we're just going to receive it.
Okay.
So motion to receive. 1, 2, all in favor? Thank you.
Do you have any questions about the board?
Well, no, I read it and I just wondered, did the neighbour support it or not? Because it doesn't get mentioned. It was just tweaked my interest. I guess I should ask the neighbour because I know that.
Actually, it usually shows that the neighbors are in attendance or whatever, but.
Yeah,
It
there's
says
one neighbor.
mentions a
noted.
neighbour. It never says whether the neighbour supports it or.
Actually, it says in the decision, the neighbor in a circumstances of granting, so. On the page 118, under decision, the first sentence.
No, doesn't mean that the
Yeah, it doesn't
neighbor agreed
say,
though.
it says submissions from voters, it says positive, negative, in it. I know the neighbour could ask.
Okay. Okay, so the ever-popular Trees, Views, and Landscape Committee, which even though I'm a member, I try to distance myself as much as I can from trees. So, we will go with, this has been, nobody here is in attendance at these meetings, the paperwork is here in front of you. The recommendation is as it is here, and just to quickly look at this, the pictures are there, the investigation is there, the work yard's in favor of this, the neighbors are in favor of this, and there we go. I'm not sure who's going to answer any questions, if there are any, but that would probably be Works Manager Jaffer. Are there any questions?
Chair, just one quick, was this, I might be confusing too, is this the one where the person asked for it to be renewed or renewable every year?
No.
That was a different one.
No, this is one where the tree committee met thinking that all the neighbors had been canvassed, but one was missed,
Yes.
and it was a vital one. So the tree committee basically said, this looks fine to us, but wait until you get the final neighbor's consent, which we eventually got.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Snoop? Okay, can I have a mover? Thank you, Mr. Vane. Mr. Beaumier, thank you for seconding. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Norm, yes, thanks. Okay, page 135, the RCMP report. This is something that we receive, just going a bit off the grid here while we're on this topic. Peter and I met with the officer in charge for the Squamish District. It seems like yesterday, but I guess it was about 3 weeks ago. And this is part of the quarterly meetings that we have with them. And the opportunity was presented by them that they could, within their retired constabulary, potentially find people for secondary jobs. And if, for the sake of argument, Lions Bay was interested in contracting with a retired police officer, Squamish would arrange the folks, we would interview them, we would talk about what we wanted from them. The financial perspective of this was that it was substantially 50% time, and the price tag was $40,000. So without getting too far down the mind on that, the individual is a full constable, full uniform, all the equipment, the ability to write tickets, bylaws, by law enforcement, the police car, the whole package. And I had asked the officer in charge to proceed to find us some potential candidates, recognizing that it was going to be sometime before that occurred. But my aim was that if the correct person could be found, that this might be a valuable asset that we could employ over our higher season, primarily the summer. It would also potentially defray some of our bylaw officer costs because they can do the same function. It would probably also alleviate some staff dealing with other bylaw issues. So I'm not making a resolution, I'm not looking for anything other than the nodding of heads that you would like me to continue with this, yes?
Oh, just if I could, I sense that you
I'll
were
take that as a nod.
nearing the end.
I'm near the end.
And just a couple of other comments about the meeting and the information that they provided to us. The province pays the other $40,000, so altogether, that between the two of us, we're paying sort of half of a salary, getting half of an officer's full-time kind of deal. So about 20 hours a week if it was spread out evenly over the year. And another aspect to this is consideration of the fact that that kind of time that we can sort of dictate what our priorities are. An officer sitting on the highway is going to cut down on the
Can you
speeding.
write speeding to?
Oh, by the way, that would be that was the
noise.
second question I asked.
Yeah.
As I drew the hypothetical, come to the village, knock off at 25 parking tickets and then do a couple of radar gun things and then sweep and find the little vandals that have stolen all of our signage. Anyhow, Peter,
It
please continue.
also, you know, we had talked about, last term, we talked about surveillance cameras as a possible option to deter and, if necessary, catch people who are causing vandalism throughout the village. It was going to be an expensive proposition anyway. We sliced it. We didn't sort of take it to the next level at this point yet. Another option that we had talked about at that time was, as an alternative, was having a security company doing patrols throughout the neighborhoods and so forth to help deter crime and deter vandalism. So this kind of hits on all of these points, but has so much more because of, you know, it's a full
The presence.
officer and the
Yeah.
presence on the highway. So
Yeah.
that was just little extra pieces that I wanted to throw out there for
Thank
your
you. I'd like to,
consideration.
there really is nothing more. It's still a work in progress. I'm going to, depending on what we do in a second or two, I'll be writing to her tomorrow, and it likely will get together in January again and see how this goes. Again, if this were to mythically come together, it'd be something for the late spring and time for all the things that Peter's just talked about. So my ask here is, this is not a, it's not a resolution, it's not a bylaw, I'm asking for a nodding of heads that I proceed along what I've just told you. Ultimately, this is going to come back into budget and come back to us in December, January. I'll take that as a, unless somebody waves their hand that we're all.
So this person can sit on the side of the highway and write speeding tickets. I
Yes.
just want to hear that.
I know, I asked the question directly. And,
Yeah, okay, you can write speeding tickets?
Yes,
Yes.
Perfect.
yes.
I think that'll go a long way to
Has
slowing
all
people down.
power that a police officer has, plus the cruiser presence too.
Right.
So we're not paying any more than the 40, that's it.
But it will be a budget issue to be considered by council.
Yeah, so this is, for my role in this and Peter's, is we're lining up the opportunity so that it comes back to all. Even, you know, dear to Neville's heart, this may be part of the in-camera strategy session, but without more details, it's just a number right now. So unless there's somebody that's raising their hand, I'll take this as nods all around and we'll move on. Thank you. The gentleman, I don't propose to look too much other than look at for inside Lions Bay 35 service calls for everything from break-in entries to theft to blah, blah, blah. So can I have a motion to receive? Thank you, Norm. It looked like you were scratching your head, but I'll take that.
Perhaps we could just have a motion to receive the verbal report that you just provided about.
That was a
the
long nodding
OCMP
of heads, wasn't it?
too.
Can I have a motion to receive my verbal? Thank you, thank you. Done? Okay. So, next up then is council chambers. Why don't you make this one?
I don't make.
You don't have the
motions.
power? All right. Recommendation, the location of the council chambers be officially moved to the upper meeting room located at the Village 400 Center Road. Is there a room number to this, by the way? Or is it just called
No,
council
it's
chambers
still,
downstairs?
it's still, this will be council chambers.
Okay.
The address stays the same. And one aspect of this redo is that these rooms were formerly rented out separately as meeting rooms A and B. The small room down there, the middle room that's currently got our audience, and then this was, of course, the library. So it's still a rentable room, but as the whole package, you can't split it up. Because there's a washroom in the small room, which is needed by whoever's renting out this space. So someone could come and rent out, for example, a strata could come and have a meeting here. We will have lockable cabinet there for council materials, and other than that, it's a pretty flexible space, which the seniors social circle has already been using quite a bit.
Good.
Will there be signage to direct people here?
Yes, well, actually, that will be the subject of council consideration next meeting when Public Works Manager Jaffer and myself bring forward a report with respect to the tender that was put out for the community signage project. So,
Okay, and lastly on that, the walkway and accessibility is a work in progress.
yeah, so the plan for the walkway out here, which is pretty bumpy and not too good, is to create a better space for accessible entry up top, and a redo of the pathway will be repaved when we get out to paving in the spring.
Okay, I will make the recommendation. Seconder, thank you, Neville. Any discussion? Nope. All in favor? Done, carried, thank you very much. Accept the meeting schedule, which Shauna will be putting into our calendar this week after we agree to it. And on that one, this is hard to add anything, so I'll put forward the motion to accept the schedule as it is noted here on page 4 of the agenda. Have a seconder? Thank you. Any discussion? No. My ask on this, just somewhat apart, is that if we are, for whatever reason, work, family, health, whatever, if whoever is missing could somehow communicate that they won't be here, that would be grand. And it would be best if it went to Peter. Okay. And please, if you haven't started, not known to the public, please put in your holidays or something special that might not be here. If weird things happen and we need to get a hold of you, we want to know where you are. Okay. So.
CC Shauna when you let me know.
When in doubt, copy Shauna with everything. My birthday's on the 29th of October. There you go. I've already deleted your holidays in the calendar. Sorry I tried, but you know. Okay, I think we've accepted this. Did we go to all in favor? Yes, I think. We did, thank you. Okay, next one, Walk for Erin event. The council waived the fees for the rental of 5 tables and for Public Works. Staff time to deliver and pick up the tables for the Walk for Erin event on December the 15th, which is across the street from Shane McLaughlin. And it will be a sunny Saturday morning. Can I have a mover? Thank you. Seconder, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Done, thank you. Unanimous. Bylaws. Peter.
So this is the delegation of authority bylaw with respect to the sale of 35 Kelvin Grove Way, which I'm happy to report has a live listing as of today.
You say that an offer.
That would have been jumping. Oh, at Beach Park, I can smell it.
And you can see the sign from the highway. I can attest
Yes.
to it, because I saw the sign
Oh,
driving
yeah.
in.
Okay, I haven't seen it yet.
Good.
But,
Thank you for that.
So yeah, the listing is with Ken Taylor, and there's a drone video as well that captures a bit of the amenities throughout Lions Bay and sort of lifestyle shots, so to speak, along with the parcel itself. And anyways, this bylaw is up for adoption, it having already received 3 readings, and it would provide me with the delegated authority to enter into a binding purchase and sale contract, or contract to purchase and sale with a buyer, subject only to the conditions that are set out in the bylaw, and such any limiting conditions as may be imposed by resolution of council. And current limitations could be discussed and closed if required.
Yes, and on that, the key information is substantially, while it reads we're giving the CAO unilateral authority. Within the in-camera session previously, it's spelled out in greater detail. So, motion put forward by Mr. Bain, second Neville. Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous, thank you. Fee bylaw. Neville, you are going to see the fee bylaw somewhere between 10 and 15 times in the next year. So learn to love it.
Well, that,
Well, it feels like we're seeing it 10 times.
no, you see it every year, at least once, because we do a review
Okay,
every year.
you are talking about a calendar year forward. Okay, I'll make note that this is number 1.
Okay. So I'll lead you through this fairly quickly. If you turn to the consolidation version on page, let's go to page 154 of 190. So Schedule 1 contains fees with relation to general administration, and we're just changing up a few things in terms of property tax certificates and NSF checks and so forth. The latter being not worth doing. And Schedule 2, so we've got some changes with respect to temporary use permit. We have been missing the fee for the application for council reconsideration. So basically with temporary use permits, this is for short-term nightly rentals. The delegation to, there's a delegated authority to me in the zoning bylaw to approve an application for a temporary use permit. If I reject such application, the applicant has a right to bring an appeal for reconsideration to council. And there are, I think it's section 35 of the procedure bylaw sets out how that is done. And this is the fee that would be associated with that process if required. Stop me if you have any questions on any of these.
I'll just stop you quickly. Temporary use permit in this renewal is annual, right?
Sorry, pardon?
The renewal is annual.
So the way we're doing the temporary use permits is the first go-round, the maximum term is 1 year, at which point they can apply for a renewal. But on the renewal, they can apply for up to 3 years. So temporary use permits can be granted for 1 to 3 years. We didn't want them to be that long in the initial phase because we want a chance to ensure that people are doing it in a respectful and responsible way and making them come back after 1 year. In terms of following page, there's just a couple of clarifications that we're missing. Site alteration permit has been removed from halfway down that page, as well as we've removed at the top of the next page, 157. Those fees had been there for a while, but they are essentially all replaced by the section at the bottom of page 157 that says site alteration permits. And these are the fees that are set out in the soil deposit removal bylaw. And again, at the bottom of that table, you'll see that there's a similar fee for reconsideration if an applicant is entitled to apply for a reconsideration by council. Driveway crossing permit on the previous page had been missing, so that's added. Oil tank inspection fee no longer needed. We shouldn't be doing those in any event. Schedule 3, just a bit of clarification in terms of what the hourly rate is per person per hour. Schedule 5 on page 160 clarifies that a new resident is entitled to 2 free permits within 30 days of becoming a new property owner. Down the page, the dumpster fee is $35 per day, and we expanded the definition to include bin or construction material as well as a dumpster. Again, clarifications on per person per hour through the rest of that section. Schedule 6, we've implemented a fee for blocking the hall for setup or takedown, a fee of $55. And I don't know how often that comes into play, but there was a
few times a
discussion.
year, yeah. For bigger events, they need the night
Mhm.
before to set up.
Sometimes there is, there's the need to block off the hall for what would otherwise be a couple of days worth of time. And it has come up previously, actually, in terms of, I think there was a potential
Conflict.
concert event that couldn't be held because of setup or takedown, I forget which. Anyways, that's been added. Clarified a couple things down the page. Got rid of the hall drop-in rate because it was more expensive than simply the hall rental rate for nonprofit groups. And so we thought we could eliminate that. Meeting room A and B I've talked about, now just the council chambers. And we're not going to rent out projectors or laptops. Damage deposit for facility equipment rental. Previously was an amount equal to the rental fee, which could be sort of an onerous amount. $50 we thought was a little bit on the low side though, so we just went with a flat $100, which by no means limits the person's liability. It's just something to remind them that they need to take care when using our facilities. Filming, the part in quote or in brackets at the top of the page, to be reviewed with filming policy, will be removed from the final version of this bylaw. It's just there to suggest that staff expects that we may be headed towards a discussion on filming. And we didn't want to revisit filming fees at this point in time, given that we're expecting that we might have that discussion. So we left them alone, other than saying non-refundable and per day where necessary. That's about it.
Thank you, Peter. And Sean advises me that we have not put this motion forward, which I will. So the recommendation is that fees bylaw number 497, 2016, amendment bylaw number 554-2018, which is my Swiss bank account, be introduced and read as first and second time. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Mr. Bain. Any discussion? Come on. There being none, motion to the floor, all in favor? Unanimously approved, thank you. Correspondence, Mr. Abbott, you are on deck.
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to thank you for that notice. I read it about half an hour before I walked down here. You did send
In the
it-
dark, so you're really
you did
wondering
send
what
it
it
this
said.
morning. So,
You can go slowly.
having said that, I had read it.
I-
had read the correspondence. So, I can try to fulfill that duty. I'll just read the summaries. First one from Peter. House and Community Forums, the Ruth Simons thing. I haven't been sort of kept well up to speed on this for a few years.
Yeah, if I could jump in, because it's not readily apparent from this email that what it's dealing with, CEA, stands for Cumulative Effects Assessment or something like that.
Okay.
And so that was a study that was being conducted by the folks that you see listed in the email, talking about the net effect of the accumulation of various small things that might be difficult to measure in and of themselves, but taken together could cause over time significant impacts to house sound. And that's what this is about. More or less just sort of an update on their last meeting, I think.
Thank you, Peter. Neville, Neville, is your recommendation we just received this?
Yes.
Thank you. Next.
someone glossed over that one. I didn't read this one.
Received as well.
Is there anyone that has read it that wants to just let us know what it is? I think we should just receive it, yeah.
Thank you.
The third one, is lengthy document about some guy's opinion why Bombardier shouldn't be making trains and should use other people. I'm not sure why we received this. I'm wondering if it's something to do, did you get to vote on this?
I can say that if the universe as we know it all received this.
Yes.
Every mayor, every councillor, every administrator, I believe they used the whole TransLink catalog so that
Right.
everybody got it. And in the first TransLink meeting, I'm afraid that because I was sitting next to McCallum, I did get a front row pew at the Church of Surrey on TransLink situation. But this didn't come up. I mean, quite frankly, it's fascinating, scary information if it's true. TransLink is the guiding body on this kind of stuff, and for we lay people here, it's interesting reading, but I don't know where you'd go with it.
Yeah. Well, I do know a little bit about this. As you know, I worked in London Underground for several years, building some of the tunnels, and I worked for SNC when they were bidding on Canada initially. So I do know a little bit about it. There's some truth to this, but it's I don't know what anyone expected us to do with it.
Shall we say received with interest?
Received with interest, and you can probably get a counter opinion that's just as elaborate and well spelled out.
Okay.
And the next one is Mayor's correspondence from John Corgan. I think that's just a congratulations. I think we've spotted anything there we needed to discuss, we should just receive that. BC assessments, one kind of tweaked my interest, got up to speed on that. Is there some sort of action we have to do with BC assessment? I know there was a while ago discussion in the community about whether it would be to our benefit to ask BC assessments to actually reassess properties or Lions Bay in general. Does anyone in that kind of discussion? No? And I'm not sure if this kind of led into any of that, but
I'm sure that's something they're looking for. You know, a hearty,
just
a BC assessment?
a hearty thank you. We'd go.
BC
We do
assessment-
one every year.
Did he say-
Every year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, they will come assess your property. Every year you get a new assessment.
yeah.
No one looks at anything. They will come assess your property if you ask them to and challenge them. And there was a suggestion, and this goes back to before prices started going through the roof, that Lions Bay properties had never really been assessed, and there was some value to asking BC assessments to do that. But I guess it wasn't in this council term that came up. Anyway, we just received this then.
Well, thinking this one through, I'm sure every villager would hit the reply to mayor button if I put it in the village update. He said we would get yes. However, from a financial perspective, as the CFO would tell you, it wouldn't make any difference in what their taxes were, because it's all based on the aggregate number divided by our need. So you may get your property reduced lower, potentially, but in the bigger pot.
So, yeah, not strictly so. So BC assessments and people that have recently bought property, right, whereas people who've been here for a long time probably typically have a lower assessment. So there would be some effect.
Yeah. They're pretty good with the market value assessment now. Like, we find it is actually quite a bit more accurate. And in terms of challenging it, it has to be the individual homeowner. So when everyone gets their assessment, if you feel it is too high, then you do have the right to challenge it, but only you can challenge it. And if we feel that some of the properties look a little low, we can't go to BC assessment and ask for it to be challenged. The homeowner themselves can.
We could call them and say, what's going on here? You know, did somebody make a mistake or whatever? But that would just be a conversation at a staff level to, and we do have staff conversations with their staff and talk about things. For example, they called me just the other day to say, just trying to figure out how much to assess 35 Calvin Grove Way. So we talked for a while, and I don't know what it's going to be, but as Pam said, I think there was a time, maybe a decade ago, when some of their values were highly questionable, but I think that they went through a process, and at the end of it, came out with a system that seems to better reflect the market realities, for the most part. I mean, people can always argue about what's right and what's fair or whatnot, but I think it's improved vastly over what it used to be.
I think so too. I am very sure that BC Assessment will be at the new elected officials boot camp in Richmond in January. If you're interested, you can chat with them. They usually set up a booth and everybody does their thing. So would we be receiving this, Neville?
Receive that.
Thank you. And you're next up on the resident correspondence.
So I think, so this is the correspondence between Peter and Mr. Conlon, about former councillor's conflict of interest. And I believe we've responded, she's received your response, what I can make out.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we went back and forth a couple times, and I think it's pretty much wrapped up. I don't think there's anything else that's left to say.
So received no response. And lastly, thank you. Okay.
And the Broughton is going to also congratulate all of us. Thank you, the Broughtons.
I've seen the former mayor socially and thanked her already on this one. There we go. Thank you, Neville. So be ready for correspondence for the next 2.5 months before it shifts to Councillor Bain. Thank you. New business, unless Peter tells me there is some, there is none. And I guessed right. Good. Public questions and comments.
I'm looking on page 3, you don't have to look at that. Appointments of standing committees. I note that it's reporting up from closed portion of meeting. Is this something we're going to know about in due course?
Probably 10 minutes after the meeting.
Right, so that's something to be discussed.
It'll be discussed and disclosed.
Okay, that's fine. I'm just curious, like, that was the main purpose I actually come, to who would be assigned to what, but I guess we'll just have to wait till after your closed meeting. The other comment I would have to make has to go back, if I may, to the park. First of all, I agree that you should pursue any grant money. 27 cents on the dollar makes a lot of sense. But I was uncertain through your discussions whether you were intending to reconvene the committee that you had or not.
Yes, and my view of this is that taking the new feedback and what staff has written here is represent the realities of the feedback and staff's recommendations, and to basically come back with an amended recommendation.
Right, I agree with that.
On the physical pieces, and then staff to go forward.
Right, I agree with that fully. That's what I would like to, personally, if I was in the position that I'd like to see. And I think it's important also that if you were to get your grant money, that you perhaps done a little bit of your homework ahead of time. But there may be some questions pertaining to the grant you're seeking as to what exactly that you're asking the grant for. They may want some more specifics. So
Yep.
That's it.
Thank you very much, Doug, and much appreciated your attendance.
Yes,
I see the crowd was dwindling as, I guess we're gonna have to go with popcorn and coffee or something like that. All right, closed meeting, closed council meeting. You know who you are if you're not supposed to be here, thank you. And for this session, we all will be here. So, Peter, closed council meetings. Are there any additional alphabet numbers that need to be added to this?
I don't think so.
Do I need to repeat what this is all for? The closed?
You can just say it's regarding section 90 sub 1 sub A.
Okay, thank you. That the meeting be closed on the public on the basis of matters to be considered under the following sections of the committee charter: 91,
A, E, and J.
and J. And we will now be closed. Shauna, it's yours. All right, council resumes from closed at 7 minutes to 9:53. Thank you. And the reporting out portions are that the new and old appointments to the Infrastructure Committee will be Mayor Ron McLaughlin, Councillors Bain, Barmayer, and Abbott, along with residents Carl Burr, Tony Greville, Jim Mudry, and Brian Ulrich. Other appointments were appointments to the Memorial Committee, which will be Mayor McLaughlin, Councillors Bain, who is the chair, and Councillor Cunliffe, and residents Tony Cox, Trudy Luthi, Tony Greville, Arlene Hallstrom, Philip Marsh, and Yuta Phillips. And Peter has one more because he has the wording in front of him. Peter?
The resolution was passed by council as follows: that council appoint former Mayor Carl Burr for a period of 1 year as council's representative on open matters relating to Highway 99, limited to signage, noise, average speed over distance, and dealing with ministries and stakeholders on the preceding matters. No compensation is offered. He shall report to council at least quarterly, and all correspondence, including emails with external parties, shall carry the following disclaimer, and I propose not to read out the disclaimer. It will be published with the minutes, but it will be in Calibri.
Thank you, and that's all very important. So with that reporting out from the closed portion, can I have a motion for adjournment? Thank you, second, and we are done at 9:55.